religious commandments, most people think they're all about complex rules and rituals. But what if the most profound spiritual instruction ever given could fit on a post-it note?
That's such an intriguing way to look at it. The contrast between what people expect and what was actually commanded is pretty striking.
You know what's fascinating about this? When Jesus spoke to his followers after the resurrection, he completely upended centuries of religious tradition. Instead of adding more rules to the already existing 613 Jewish commandments, he did something radical.
How did that go over in a society that was completely structured around detailed religious observations?
Well, historical records show that it created quite a stir. Think about it, you have generations of people who've built their entire identity around these intricate practices, and suddenly someone says, actually, all you need to do is listen and follow.
That must have seemed almost too simple to be true.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. Studies in religious psychology show that humans actually tend to prefer complex rules over simple principles. It's like we have this built-in resistance to simplicity.
That reminds me of how modern self-help books often sell better when they offer complicated systems rather than basic truths.
Oh my goodness, yes. And speaking of psychology, let's talk about this fascinating concept in the text about how both excessive self-importance and low self-esteem are actually two sides of the same coin. Pride. And
That's quite counterintuitive. How does that work exactly?
well, research in cognitive behavioral therapy suggests that both conditions keep the focus entirely on the self. Whether you're constantly thinking, I'm the best or I'm the worst, you're still making everything about you. Ancient wisdom and modern psychology actually align perfectly on this.
So it's like being trapped in a hall of mirrors, just with different kinds of reflections.
Precisely. And this brings us to what I think is the most challenging aspect, this radical command to love your enemies. Studies show that practicing forgiveness actually reduces stress hormones like cortisol in your body.
That's fascinating. So there's actually a physiological benefit to following this spiritual teaching.
Yes. And here's another mind-blowing fact. Research from the Harvard Negotiation Project shows that people who actively practice empathy toward their opponents are 67% more likely to achieve successful conflict resolution.
So this ancient wisdom has practical modern applications.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is how this all ties back to the concept of holiness. The text says, "Be holy, for the Lord your God is holy." But it defines this holiness not through ritualistic behavior, but through how we treat others.
That's quite different from how most people think about holiness today.
Right? And here's what contemporary religious scholars point out. This command to love wasn't just revolutionary in its simplicity, it was revolutionary in its scope. It basically said that how you treat the person who cut you off in traffic is as spiritually significant as any religious ritual.
That certainly puts our daily interactions in a different light.
And maybe that's the most profound insight here, that spiritual transformation isn't about grand gestures or elaborate ceremonies, but about these small moment-by-moment choices to turn toward love rather than away from it.
Those daily decisions really do add up over time, don't they?
They absolutely do. And you know what? Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that consistent small actions actually create new neural pathways more effectively than occasional big changes. It's like the spiritual and scientific worlds are telling us the same thing. Real transformation happens in these tiny everyday moments.
Well, that certainly gives us all something to think about in our daily interactions.
Indeed, it does. And perhaps that's our takeaway today, that the simplest command might be the most profound, and that true spiritual growth isn't about knowing more, but about loving better.